Hello, everyone. Sophia Chand back with a live session for you, for women, for your career benefit. I think this is just a little attempt from our end to be able to connect to women from all over India and try to give some insights. We keep talking about women empowerment, but our aim is to actually give you that empowerment to know how actually you can practice it. Yeah, with that in mind, today we have Smiti Bhatt Deorah with us. She's the co-founder and CEO of Advantage Club. This is a global platform for employee lifecycle management. I will actually pass the baton on to Smiti so that she can tell us more about herself. Hi, Smiti.
Hi, Sophia. Thank you so much for having me here. A quick background on me. Like you mentioned, I'm the co founder of Advantage Club, which is a global employee experience, rewards recognition, community building platform. I started my career in the technology space. So I actually started my career as a developer. But then slowly and slowly, I started moving on to the business side. And then now, ever since we've started the venture, I moved from being a technology person to more in a business development or a
Nice.
client management role. So that's been my
Yeah.
journey overall since all of these years.
Lovely, lovely. So today, obviously, in keeping with what you do at Advantage Club, we are talking about how challenging it is for companies to retain female employees, right? So obviously, we know that the fact is that having female employees has an advantage. It does affect if not only at the company level but also at country level, there is an effect of women not being there in the workforce, right? So can you shed some light on that? How does it affect companies? How does it affect the economy? How does it affect the GDP?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have some stats which I wanted to share today. So if you don't mind, can I
Great.
share my screen? Yeah,
Yes,
perfect.
yes, please.
So it's not like a full-fledged presentation, but it's more like stats which I've found from different sources, and I thought it'd be really eye-opening for a lot of people um, in terms of understanding how different it is for women than it is for men. So just
Sure.
give me a second. I'll just share
Yeah,
my
yeah,
screen.
please do, please do.
Is my screen visible?
Just a second. Yeah, I'll add it to the stream. Yeah, done.
Okay. So, according to the World Economic Forum, they did like a gender gap report, and these are numbers of 2020, so they might have even gotten worse over time. Labor
Mm-hmm.
force participation in India is literally 24.8% for women, which is really, really bad considering that, almost 75 to 80% of women in India are actually not working. Women in
Yeah.
India also earn only one fifth of a man's income on an average. And if you look at the from an entrepreneurship perspective, like people starting their own businesses or their own ventures, there is a gender gap of three men for every two women entrepreneurs. So
Right.
if you look at entrepreneurs across the world, only 37% of them are women. So whatever area you look at, whether you're looking at blue collars or white collars or even people running their own businesses, there is a genuine gap when it comes to women participation as opposed to men participation. And
True.
primarily there are like four reasons why I feel that these challenges exist. One is the pay gap. Second is overall in terms of career progression and childcare, which becomes a very important part of a woman's life at some
Right.
point in her life, right? Third is work-life balance, which becomes overall hard ever since woman gets married and then they start working in their careers. The career has to take a backseat for a lot of things because they're not able to balance both things together. And of course, there's a lot of drop-offs from the industry for women because they faced workplace harassment in some or the other ways, and then at some point the family or the peer network they say it's not worth it, you sit at home, it's not required for you to actually work, or you
Yeah.
pull out of jobs really fast and then you're not that motivated to look for
Yeah.
another job.
Yeah.
and that also causes a lot of drop offs when it comes to women in the workplace as well. So let's let me first talk about the gender pay gap. So gender pay gap again, according to 2022's World Inequality Report, um, if you look at Indian labor income, there 18% of the overall you know kind of, if you look at the parity between both men and women, the female parity is around 18%, whereas the male parity is around 82%. Women in general are paid 19% lesser than men if you're looking at India as a landscape
Yeah,
overall.
of course.
And
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the World Economic Forum actually did like an entire gender gap report where they evaluated 146 nations in terms of
yeah.
gender disparity. And India was at 135. So with
35,
that
yeah.
low, exactly. So with that low in terms of gender wage gaps,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there is a lot of gap. So that's around the gender pay gap itself, what challenges women are facing in India, especially if they're working. Second is around career progression and childcare. Now, if you look at a woman's career timeline, right? So typically, okay, let me just start with an example. So if you go back in time and if you think of who was the school topper in your school, maybe fifth standard, sixth standard, seventh standard, eighth standard, ninth standard, tenth standard. In most of your cases, you would remember it would be a girl, right? So
Yeah.
it's not so, so it's not like
Up
uh,
already.
girl. Yeah, it is true, right? It is true. So if you're looking at
Yeah.
this, if you look at school in general, most of your school toppers or most of your above average performers are women. Now, you again go back in time a little further and you remember your college days. Um, Again, you remember maybe 50% of them being girls and 50% of them being guys. Even in engineering colleges, most of the toppers in colleges are women, as long as the smart girls available there. Now,
Hmm.
uh, after engineering colleges, now if you think of say masters, you will start
Hmm.
seeing a decline in the number
Yeah.
of women which are there. So you
Yeah.
start seeing most of the toppers, they are men now. And
Hmm.
then you go into say your office spaces, right? You'll see all the bosses being men. You'll see most of the senior people in management being men. So
Yeah.
that's where your drop off happens, right? So when in India especially, you have this mentality that you want to educate a girl, you want the
Hmm.
girl to be a topper, to be like a really really smart girl. And then
Yeah.
when she enters college, that is when she hits the age of 18. And when she
Yeah.
hits the age of 18 to 20, the focus goes away from her education to maybe finding a guy for her, or
Making her more marriage material.
exactly, making her more marriage material, right? So that
Yeah.
is where majority of your drop off happens. And these super smart girls who have been topping their schools or been doing really really well, their life focus becomes finding that suitable husband and then taking care of his family. So that is where majority of your drop offs happen. And then the second set of drop offs, the women who still continue working, whose families allow, and they're like, okay, we allow you to work.
Yeah.
So for those women, after they get married, the second drop off happens is when they have children.
Yeah.
So in India especially, there is a lot of mental taboo around the fact that, okay, if you're not say sitting at home and taking care of your children, you are a bad mother. So
Hmm.
because of that psychological taboo, a lot of women, they drop off after they have children by saying that,
Right.
okay, I'll have to sit at home and I'll have to take care of my children. And I personally don't feel, I mean, of course, for maybe 10-15% of the women in the country, it would be practically impossible to work. But for 85 to 90% of women in the country, it is absolutely possible to manage both. It's all
Right.
about your psychology and how you want to actually look at it. Like, for example, as an entrepreneur, we're part of the Y Combinator group, and I am connected with more than 450 women who are entrepreneurs in Y
Right.
Combinator, right? So we do, there are a lot of these women entrepreneurship groups, forums, and conversations which keep happening thanks to YC. And I
Right.
have seen incredible women who are managing companies, who are managing billion-dollar companies, and
Hmm.
they're taking care of their children. They may or may not have a support system, but they may or may not have like a full-time nanny, but they have ways in which they hire help. They get help of
Yeah.
their family structures, their or
Yeah.
if you're earning money, you can always spend that money to find somebody to take care of your children. So it's
Right.
possible to do that, but I think there is a lot of mental blockade around you're a bad mother because you are not sitting at home. So that is also where you lose a lot of women dropping off from the workplace, and hence retention of women becomes a challenge. So
Yeah. Right.
that's what the numbers also kind of show here, that according to Bloomberg, like 75% of Indian women say that family responsibilities is the reason I'm not able to work. And we lose 25 million women from the workforce, literally due to lack of childcare support. And in India, it's really not that expensive to get childcare support. It's super expensive to get a nanny in the US. I mean, it's literally like equivalent to college fees for a child. But in India,
Yeah.
you can get help. You can get nannies. You don't have to
Yeah.
get like a full time. You can get somebody part time. You have daycares. You have so many options available for women to
Yeah.
actually
Definitely
utilize.
there is. Hmm.
Yeah. And of course, after childbirth, you know, uh, 40% of women leave their job as compared to 23% of men. And I was actually surprised to look at 23% of men. I didn't
Yeah,
know that
exactly.
20% leave.
I'm so surprised, really. I thought that
Yeah.
number would be like close to zero or something.
Exactly, exactly. But so there is a number of drop-offs in men as well because of childbirth, but mostly it is women.
Amazing.
So that's around the child progression and career progression, right? Which really stops you from continuing in your work. Third is work-life balance, and Monster had done the salary indexing piece where they identified that 75% of Indian women report inadequate work-life balance. And I think things have actually gotten worse post-COVID when you have this hybrid setup. I mean, hybrid setup is great for men, right? Because they're sitting
Hmm.
at home, they don't have to travel. It does a lot of benefits for their
Yeah.
personal work-life balance. For women, it's actually
Right.
become harder because now you're
Yeah.
also expected to take care of the home, you're expected to take care of food, you're expected to take care of the children, your in-laws, the kids screaming in the background, and there's your manager screaming in the foreground. So there's like a lot of madness which is happening.
Chaos.
So
It's total chaos.
yeah, it's very chaotic now. So it's so a lot of women at that point also drop off thinking that it's not worth it. I mean, it'll just probably find something more chill or something more less painful in the future. And
Yeah.
also I think according to like Bain and Co, 30% of talented women have actually put forward their point that they have to choose between their personal life and career progression at some point of time. And
Yeah.
uh, you know that's something which is not really surprising for us as well, but the stats prove it even more. And
Hmm.
flexible hours, while it has definitely made it easier, but I think it's also important for women to also put their foot down and say that, okay, there is flexibility in terms of hours, but that does not mean that I'm not at work. I'm still at work,
Yes.
right? So
Exactly.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
if say my husband has a meeting and that's considered as a meeting, then my meeting also should be considered as one. So that's
Yes.
primarily what has been the challenge for women in terms of work life balance, and drop offs has been very common because of that.
Actually,
Lastly,
this
in
kind
terms of
of also answering, I mean, the points that you're stating is also kind of answering the next question that I had in mind was,
yeah,
why do women leave? Like, what is the reason? Why can't they, stick on? So many times we feel that it is within us that, we take this decision. But actually, there are a lot of external factors operating that kind of,
yeah,
psychologically brainwash you into taking these actions because as you said, you're not a good mother if you don't take care of your child. And while you are on call, still house is more important than call. If there's someone asking you to do something, then you need to leave everything at work and do that, but no one would expect that of a man. So yeah, I mean, I love the points you are bringing out. I mean, it's all there at the back of our minds, but when it comes out in real, you realize what's happening with you. Amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the last point, which kind of does not directly impact attrition for women, but also I feel it indirectly impacts attrition for women in the workplace, is workplace harassment. Because workplace harassment does not just have like a kind of a career blocker kind of a thing for you. It's not just a career blocker, it also becomes a psychological factor for you to actually continue working, right?
Yeah.
So, and according to Amnesty International, like 1 in 2 women in India have always experienced some or the other form of workplace sexual harassment. Similarly, since in March 2022, Compliker had done a study on how much percentage of workplace harassment complaints have increased, and it's almost 27% since the past few years. Similarly, workplace harassment costs also, organizations up to more than $22,000 per employee annually. So the ideology is that if we are able to uh, kind of fix workplace harassment, and you nip it in the bud, and you kind of make it very clear in the organization that we are a completely we're completely anti-harassment, and we will take this very seriously, and nothing of this sort will be acceptable in the organization. Forget about women attrition. Organizations will also end up saving a lot of money, because uh, the lesser number of posh cases which happen in the workplace, the lesser
Yeah.
costs an organization has to actually incur to
Yeah.
close those cases, right? So the keep the ROI and legality aside, at the same time it will also help you reduce women attrition, because women will feel that they're at a safe place, and
Yeah.
they wouldn't be looking for other jobs all the time, or even just reconsider them continuing in the workplace at all. So workplace harassment has also been a very, very major factor for women, attriting from the workplace. And then there's always this society thing, right? Why are you taking so much of stress? Just leave it. Just sit at home. Why do you have to work so hard? So that all of that comes in from the fact that you are stressed at work, and a lot of things you can't do anything about. So then
Yeah.
obviously good parents always come up and say that it's okay, beta, don't worry. So don't work. So it sounds great, but it's not
Let your
really
husband
good
take
to
care of
think. Yeah. True, true, true. So
it's
yeah, so these are like
sad.
my four primary divisions around why women are actually attriting. That's
Yeah.
my thought process, and of course my point of view. But I also feel that there are a lot of other things which I might not have covered, and would love to hear from people if they'd like to share anything around
Right.
what they feel has been a blocker for them to continue working
Yeah.
beyond these years as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've kind of touched on the points like very I'm very happy that we were able to see so many statistics around it, because we keep talking about it that this happens, but now when you
Yeah,
see numbers you realize that yes, I talked to a couple of colleagues of mine, and then they say that you guys are just making a big deal out of it. It actually doesn't exist, and now here are the numbers that it proves that it's not only India, it happens across the world. And obviously we cannot expect India to be anywhere better. I mean, the average would probably be higher than lower, right, within India.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's really amazing to see how this still happens, and how we ourselves are not able to overcome this, right?
yeah. Yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, when Girls Buzzers had reached out to me for doing something around, um, you know, gender biases and gender disparity, and I was talking to Ritika in my founder's office, and I was like, let's make a presentation. So, and she and I were laughing about it. And what do we talk about? I mean, there is nothing we will talk about which people don't already know. So then,
exactly.
okay, let's just find out stats and figures to support what people talk about all the time,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
like you
yeah,
said, a lot of
it's an
times
eye
people feel this doesn't exist, and when you
yeah.
see hard hitting facts you realize that data does not lie. So
Yeah.
that's what we thought we'll kind of present here today.
Mhm. Yeah. So I think a little bit that I would like you to tie this in will be, that how does this affect a company? Like, besides the fact that they are losing out on, hiring an employee and losing all the money out, what is it that typically affects an employer's workplace, right? I'm sure there must be some effect on it, right? So what do
Yeah.
you think happens over here?
So I think the biggest challenge which employers face is of course attrition, right? So attrition, and especially the cost of replacing a performing employee, is actually
Hmm.
6 times the salary of that particular employee. So if I am
Hmm.
replacing 6 times the monthly salary of that employee, so if I'm replacing an employee, typically and the 6 times monthly salary is also logical, because when I'm having somebody leave, 2 months will be their notice period, and then I will the new person who joins in will also take 2 months to actually get hired, and then another 2 months to actually get kind of used to that entire structure in the
Yeah.
organization. So you can literally say that half of the woman's annual salary is the loss which is borne by the organization if a woman, and especially a performing woman, is
Yeah.
leaving your organization. And
Yeah.
personally, like, I work with women, like a lot of women as my clients, as my employees as well. And like at Advantage Club, for example, we have a overall gender ratio of 38% women. Um,
Hmm.
when I tell people that 38% of Advantage Club is women, they're wowed about it, and I'm like, no, it's really low. I am still wondering, how do I make this 50% or more? Because
Yeah.
you know when I work with these women, I realize that it's very different as compared to working with men, right? So their ideologies are very different. Their I think and I also feel that women, because they have an option to not work, the ones who decide to work are really very committed
Hmm.
to their work. So
Yeah.
that's why I
Yeah.
really like
Obviously.
having a woman workforce, because I know that if she's here, then she's really committed to being here, and she really wants to
Yeah.
prove something to the world, instead of maybe a man who might be just there because everybody's expected to do a job, right? So
Yeah.
that's primarily, and losing such a good resource and is really really expensive beyond the 6x of the salary,
Yeah.
monthly salary that you're looking at. So that's the first major um, you know problem which an
Loss.
organization will be facing in terms of monetary losses itself.
Right.
Secondly, and I also covered it in my slide once, that if we are looking at any sort of you know uh, women leaving because of, say, harassment cases or anything else, it costs an organization $22,000 per posh case employee annually, and that's also really expensive. If you are having dissatisfied women in the workplace, you're having a really bad culture where there's a lot of harassment going on. So I think from a monetary perspective, there is a direct impact on the organization. And then of
Right.
course, companies have diversity mandates. Of course, it impacts the diversity mandates. It becomes a challenge to justify to their bosses internally that why are we having so many women at right in the workplace.
Yeah.
I also know, like, I work with a lot of US clients. So US also has a few US based organizations who
Hmm.
have a mandate to work with vendors who have a high diversity, who have a
Yeah.
mandate to work with women founders. And all of that also becomes a challenge. If you have such a bad diversity ratio, then a lot of companies might not even want to work with you,
Work with
because
you. Yeah. At least that
kind
part
of
is changing. Yeah. At least a lot of
absolutely,
companies are
absolutely.
recognizing that and
Yeah, yeah.
encouraging it. So
Yeah. And
excellent.
I also, and lastly, from a societal perspective, I also feel that if we don't have enough women in the workplace, then we're not moving forward as a society, as a generation. We're not
Right.
moving forward, because uh,
Yeah.
if you look at this generation, like, okay, maybe uh, 30% or 20% or 30% or whatever percentage of women are actually working in the country, that also has become possible because of the women in the previous generations who've actually been working, right? So
Yeah.
till the time you yourself are a working woman, you will not understand the value of it, and then you will not let that entire generation, future generations progress in a way in which you're okay with your daughter or your daughter-in-law actually working,
Yeah.
and creating a career progression. And overall, from a societal intelligence standpoint also, I mean, the human brain needs to constantly keep moving or working to
Yeah.
actually stay sane, right? So
Yeah.
imagine if somebody's been topping their school since 10th till 10th standard, and then after 10th standard she's not done anything in the real world. I wouldn't call that an education, right? I mean, that education has no meaning, because you have learned everything on books but you've not experienced anything in the real world. So your brain development does not happen in that manner. So
Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
we also owe it to society to not make women stupider and stupider over time, and
Yeah.
then at least increase the general intelligence of all genders
I didn't
to
hear
live
that.
together.
Okay, so I think you've come a long way in your career. You've established yourself. You won awards, ET Inspiring Woman Leader of the Year. I obviously feel very proud to be able to speak to you first of all. But owing to your expertise, can you tell us what is it that organizations can do to retain these employees, these women employees, to not let them go, to hire the right ones, to make a difference by hiring women employees?
Yeah. So primarily, so I think first I'll talk about, how do you actually go about encouraging more and more women employees to be hired, right? So that's the first piece, and then second I'll talk about how do you retain the women employees in the right way.
Right.
So the first is around hiring. Now, when say for example, if I'm a guy, I'm looking for a job, and versus I'm a woman, I'm looking for another job. So as a woman, my criteria might be a little different, not a lot, very little different from a man's criteria, right? So one, I will look for workplace safety. That is first and foremost most important to me. Secondly, I will look for say for example, if it's a hybrid setup, then it doesn't matter that much. But if it is, say, a work from office kind of a scenario, I will also be looking for, what is the location of that particular place,
Yeah.
how safe it is to move in and out in the evenings from that place. Third, if I or when I have to, say, work really really late in the night, is my organization supportive enough to provide me transportation or any means of reimbursement of transportation for that? So those are very small tiny nuances which really help in increasing, say, women candidates joining and continuing to work with them. Second thing I think which helps in increasing women participation is a high diversity ratio. If nobody wants to be like one of the two women in an office where there are like 100 men, right? So also in a genuine effort in increasing the diversity in an organization. Third, uh, invest in bringing in more and more women leaders in your organization. The more women leaders you will bring in, the more women employees you will attract. If you only have like a set of leaders who are all men, then they will naturally be more and more biased towards hiring more men. Although the other way around is not usually there, right? I've never seen women being more biased towards hiring only women. Maybe I'm one of those weird ones, but typically I've usually seen women also be more biased towards hiring more men. So we have to change that mentality. The more women leaders we hire, the more psychologically it will keep changing in workplaces to hire more women. And for candidates also, they will feel more comfortable that okay, my boss is a woman, or my super boss is a woman, or I'm not just surrounded by
Yeah.
seniors who are all men. So I think those are attractive things to get more diversity candidates. Second, be very clear on how you are supportive of women in terms of anti-harassment policies, that your workplace is a very safe workplace, and
Mhm.
it not only gives comfort to them, it also gives comfort to their families. And fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, in India, women are still at the behest of their parents or their in-laws before they
Yeah.
actually decide to take a job. It doesn't happen in the West. I mean, in the West, no girl is ever going to go and ask their parents that, okay, I'm getting a job in this company, do you approve? But in
Yeah.
India, it's always like that. So the more an organization puts efforts into making it a safe place for women to work, the more women will start participating in that company itself.
Yeah.
Second is primarily around the retention piece. So retention of women, one, again, if you have more women leaders and more women mentors in the workplace, it also encourages the young girls or the women who have joined the organization to continue working, right? So um, if I think of, okay, if I'm having certain issues in my home, there is a high possibility that my mentor or my peer or my manager, who's also a woman, might have gone through the same issues at their homes as well, or they might know somebody who's gone through those issues, and they might be actually able to give them solutions to those issues.
Yeah. Relate also. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, when I'm faced with with an issue, who do I talk to? Either I talk to my parents, or I talk to my maybe spouse or boyfriend or whatever, or
Yeah.
I talk to my friends, or if I'm very close to my peers or my mentor in the office, I talk to my colleagues or I talk to my manager. So
Right.
that particular piece can also help them get retained in the right manner, because a lot of times we feel that, okay, there's no solution to this problem, but the person has gone through so much in their life. As a mentor, they might be able to give you the right solutions.
Yeah.
So having more women leaders also helps you in retaining more women in the organization,
Hmm.
from a, not just from a psychological safety perspective, but also from a peer support perspective, that they're able to get answers to questions they're not getting otherwise.
Right.
In terms of retention, again, all of the pieces which help in your hiring, that they also help in retention. um,
Hmm.
Other thing which I want to do, which I want to talk about, is I think generally create a culture of recognition in the workplace, where generally, to remove most gender biasing, create an appreciation culture of people basis their talents, not
Right.
basis designation, or not basis their gender or who they are or where they come from. So
Yeah.
I think
End
typically
of the day, performance should matter. Performance should be what should be considered, right? I mean, merit is what is important. That's what gets
exactly.
the organization going ahead. So,
Absolutely.
I
And
would
when
buy.
you create a structure purely and purely based on merit, the thought process of gender is just thrown out of the window. Then you
Yeah.
go back to again your school days, right? Where
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
topper was a girl or a boy, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you wrote in that exam, and whoever wrote the right answers, they
Yeah. Yeah.
actually end up getting the A's or A pluses or whatever. So celebrating and recognizing employees, in the right way basis performance, and also celebrating and recognizing employees who contribute to a more inclusive culture. So
Hmm.
and it's not just for women, it's also for men. If we can
Right.
drive recognition programs for men who are more culturally adherent to the
Hmm.
cultures of the organization, we can start creating recognition programs for them, so that
Hmm.
they get overly incentivized, plus people around them look at these people and they say that, okay, this person is more culturally sane in the company, so that person is getting recognized, let me also try that out. So the
Yeah.
beauty of recognition is that it works like a cookie model. So say for
Yeah.
example, um, 80% of people in the company get a cookie because they
Hmm.
did something good, and
Hmm.
it's obvious what they did because of which they've gotten this cookie. The remaining 20% will automatically be incentivized to work harder for that cookie. So,
Yeah.
same thing, the cookie model can work on any behavior, whether it
Hmm.
is promoting inclusivity, diversity, performance, KRA completions. All of those can be clubbed together in a holistic cultural, recognition and culture building program, which
Right.
help people work towards the right way and start looking past these gender
Yeah.
biases,
Exactly. Yeah.
race cards,
Hmm.
and all of those things as well.
Hmm.
And lastly, I think it's important to promote and support women mentorship programs, right? Women networking groups. If I am a working woman and I am about to have a child, I will benefit from talking to other working women who have had a child, right? And
Hmm.
understand more about their struggles, the solutions which they think they should have done at that point, but they could not. I mean, they could actually pass on that wisdom and create the right support group and the right support structure. A lot of times, very simple things are very strong solutions, which when you are in that predicament, you don't think about. You don't think in that way.
Yeah.
Or you just talk to somebody and they're like, oh, this is so simple. I just, it didn't click to me, you know? So creating
Yeah.
more women mentorship programs and more women networking solutions, I think it will really help women continue working in the workplace. I mean, I'm a very big propagator of the fact that not just women, men, I mean, everybody should work. I really feel that people shouldn't. I really feel that, you know, as humans, we have been given a really smart brain, which is better than most animals. So I just feel that, you know, everyone, like everybody, whether you're smart at school or whether you're not, everybody's talented in some form or the other.
In
So
some
I
form or the
personally,
other.
yeah, and I personally feel that people should not waste those talents. I mean, I'm not saying
Yeah.
you do a corporate job and only then you are like a super smart person, but I feel that you should be always doing something. You should always be
Do something.
challenging your, you
Yeah.
should always be
Yeah.
challenging your brain, and you should always be growing in life. I
Yeah.
mean, I forget about women, even as men, if you don't want to do that, that's okay. But then it should be your choice. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
forced upon you because of society,
Correct.
and
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
having like a bitter thought process when you're old and on your deathbed that I could have done this or I should have done that. So I just feel that it's really important for such career progression programs to motivate more people, you know, bring more women to the workforce, and eventually also increase the GDP of the country. So I think it's really important there.
Yeah, actually, now more than ever, it is more important to understand this because we've seen actually a drop in the rate of women employees across the country for the sole reason that it was a work from home culture and everyone was able to manage that entire flexible model. And now that they have to go back to their workplaces, it's becoming more and more difficult for women to actually manage both. So dynamics have definitely changed after COVID, and it's not the same. Corporate life is not the same. Things cannot remain the same. We are used to doing a lot of personal work as well as office work during office hours, but also doing office work during personal hours, right? So the uh, the line has become almost, it's diminished. Although we are
Yeah.
able to live our life, where our work life balance is probably better, but it does have its disadvantages. So I think now more than ever we need to understand the fact that it's easy to just quit your job, stay back home, and do
Yeah.
all of those things. But if you are someone who is used to utilizing your talent at the workplace, that's not going to keep you at home for long. I mean, you would definitely want to get back into the cycle, right?
Yeah, like you said, right, it really is a personal choice. So if you are choosing to stay back, it should be your choice. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
because it's forced upon you, or because, you know, everybody around you is doing it, so you feel that okay,
If
this
you
is
leave the job,
something I
then
can
uh, yeah, how will you take
do.
care of the home? Now you cannot manage, and you were better off when you were home, and all those things keep
Yeah.
happening, right, with us. So
Yeah, but there's also another thought process, right? So if you are earning, and if you are say working somewhere and earning enough, you can utilize that income which you are earning to actually hire help, which can help you manage that at home, right? So it's really, I mean, I don't think there is there's no other way of doing something else, because if you look at the West, like, people don't have that option.
yeah,
You know, they don't stay with their parents, they don't stay with in-laws, nobody stays with anybody, the nuclear families, and then they have to
yes,
manage on their own, right? So nobody's gonna take care of your food or your money or your health or whatever. So
yeah,
there women are also forced to work, and that's why you see such high kind of both side gender participation in the workplace. And I think that's also another reason why those countries are progressing faster, because
yeah,
here you have one person in the family working, there you have two. Now, when you
Hmm.
have twice of the workforce working towards the development of a nation, then obviously that nation is going to be better than the nation where half of the gentry is not working. So I strongly believe that people should contribute as much as they can to the growth of a nation, the growth of a society, in whatever way they can. And um, since you earn money out of it, you can always utilize that money to create support systems. And in India, it is way more easier to create support systems than anywhere else in the world. So we should
Yeah.
utilize that, and we should, I mean, forget about help. We have families. I mean, nobody gets that kind of family support anywhere across the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're in Dubai, so I'm sure you can corroborate for a lot of it that we Indians have a better
Yeah.
shot at making big things work than others because we don't
For
have to
sure.
worry about
Yeah.
things.
Neha is saying a very interesting thing actually on the chat. She's saying being inconsiderate of health problems of female candidates is also a big issue. That
Oh yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Oh yeah. So a lot of companies nowadays you've started seeing that period leave has become so common,
yeah,
where the sole acceptance of the fact that if a woman is bleeding, it is an inconvenient thing has kind of become
unlike
yeah
unlike the
more.
typical advertisements that we see that someone is dancing around and all that, that
Yeah.
actually does not happen. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, there are a few things biologically which I've seen women do need more than men, right? So,
yeah,
biologically, women need a little bit of more sleep than men.
right,
Biologically, they need more. I think, uh, especially because you are going through so many hormonal changes throughout the month, you
yeah,
need. You need vitamins, you need iron, folic acid supplements, and all of those, especially once you cross a certain age.
right.
And that's when when you're working, right? When you're a kid, you're like 15 years old, nothing happens to you. But
Nothing happens. Yeah,
it's when you touch 30 is that's when you start realizing that okay, there is a biological difference between men and women in general. And then so I think it just the being sensitive to that becomes important. And
yeah,
organizations have, I think, now started also being sensitive to the fact that okay, a woman might need a leave if she's not well for 1 or 2 days in a month and all of those things. So but there is a lot of education which is pending and long way for us to go to actually reach there.
okay,
But yeah, it's a very interesting point.
yeah. Okay, so I guess that's about it. Smiti, it was lovely talking to you, and numbers were a real eye opener. I'm really happy to see something that is on paper that can actually prove for a fact that yes, this happens, because we keep talking, as I said, that okay, disparity happens, it's not equal, we are harassed at workplace, all these things we keep saying, but the fact is that it does happen, and these numbers prove that, right? So
Yeah.
goes a long way in supporting our cause for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, any
Thank
last words of advice from you, Smriti?
uh, just the fact that I think we as women need to support more women. I mean, it's not a Nari Mukti Morcha campaign, what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
but really, I mean, really, I truly believe in that. Because, the if I, another thing which I've interestingly observed about men is that men are weirdly grown to be confident versions of themselves, right? So you'll always find 80% of men to be overly confident. Even if they suck at certain things, they will in their head be very confident, and I really love that trait. I mean, I'm like, and for women exactly the opposite.
exactly
You
the
will be
opposite.
the
Yeah,
you
no
will be
matter
the
how
most,
much you excel, you do good, you'll just not be confident about yourself,
you'll just
right?
not feel you are not enough, right? And you might be the most good looking girl in your class, but you will still end up thinking, oh, I'm ugly, so there's like a lot of, I don't know where it comes from, but there's a lot of um, psychological stigma around the fact that I am not good enough. So for women, you'll find like 80% of women struggling with maybe self-worth issues, or thinking that they're not, they need to do more and they're not good enough, and 20% will fall in that spectrum of where 80% of men are.
Yeah.
So I just feel that my one piece of advice would be to women is to, one, realize your own power, identify that you are better than enough, right? So you're, it's not like you're not good enough, irrespective of whoever has told you whatever in your world. It doesn't matter what people say. What matters is what you think of yourself. And that would be my only piece of advice, that create the most confident version of yourself, and your best friend is yourself. I mean, nobody in the world can actually tell you what you're capable of doing or not doing. That thought process itself, I think, can make a lot of difference in how you behave, how you talk to people, or how you grow in your life. So that's my only one piece of advice.
Yeah, I think the we could literally put it in quotes that you need to stop overcompensating for things that you do not need to even compensate for, right? So,
Exactly. Exactly.
okay, thank you, Smiti. It was really wonderful talking to you, and I hope you had a good time too.
Same here, Sophia. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank
And
you.
if anyone has any questions, you guys can put your questions down in the comments, and we'll try our best to answer them even afterwards. Yeah. Thanks a lot, and we shall say bye.